Hello there, everyone. This is Sapphire Merrick for PXKM Productions. Welcome, and we have a new show, the PXKM Productions interview series. On this inaugural episode, we have Wilson from the Wilson108 channel. Hello. Good to see you.
Hello to you, Sapphire. Good to see you as well. How are you doing?
I am doing well. And yourself?
I am fantastic. Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better.
Good. So Wilson runs a YouTube channel, Wilson108, where he, in his main series, My Girlfriend Tries, observes his girlfriend, Ellie's, first 5 hours with a game.
Oh my gosh, I can climb stuff like this now? Whoa! I was like, oh, it's not gonna work.
As well as a similar potential future series where he documents his own first 5 hours with a new game.
Okay, I thought that this one maybe was going to be a little simpler to reach, but it would appear that a body of water separates myself and it.
And his reviews.
This element of the battle system was the true game changer for me. So often, I end up feeling kind of in over my head with turn-based RPGs.
Wilson also makes video essays pertaining to various topics related to gaming. Examples include his videos, Seriously, It's Okay to Play Video Games?
I became fearful of having new friends over to my house solely because I didn't want them to see how big my video game collection was.
And I'm Tired of Hard Games.
They never get it. I quickly grew hopeless, and that hopelessness compounded my frustration significantly.
So far, he has amassed 21,500 subscribers, and he joins us today.
Walking around to cool off. With every passing death, the temptation to quit the game grew more and more palpable, but I was too stubborn for that.
To the people at home, I prepared some questions beforehand, pre-screened them with Wilson, and we're just going to go through them here. So if you found Wilson's channel, now you can learn a bit more about him and Ellie and his process and all that stuff. So anything before we get going?
I concur. Letting all the cats out of the bag, all the secrets revealed. Can't wait.
Secrets. All right. Question 1. What made you get into video production?
You know, I think I've always had an itch to create videos. When I was a kid, some neighbors and we used to film little short films on a camera, pre-YouTube, and just, you know, we just did it for us. And it was such a fun process. And it just felt very innate. One of those kids, a couple of them, still some of my best friends to this day. And we still love to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as I got a little older into middle school, I learned what YouTube was. This was like, 2006, 2007. So the advent of YouTube was upon us. And it was Christmas of 2007 that I got a camera that had the capacity to upload the files to a PC, and then you could publish them to YouTube. And as soon as I got that camera, I started to do it. And I hadn't asked for that. I wasn't expecting to receive it. But as soon as I made that first video and published it, I was hooked. I couldn't stop. And obviously back then, the videos didn't perform particularly well. It was mostly just kind of for me and anybody that happened to wander into the video in those early days of YouTube, where it was very sort of like the Wild West of
what year did you say again? I'm sorry.
It was at the end of 2007 that I started, kind of into 08 when I really started to get into the group.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I kept doing that for a few years and eventually, kind of fizzled out as I got into high school and into college. I started to stream on Twitch, and that was these older videos didn't really pertain to video games at all. It wasn't until college that I kind of married the content creation with video games, something I already loved to do, but had never really found a way to incorporate into creation. And so I loved that process. It was a really fun few years of doing that. Once again, eventually just kind of burned out of it, fizzled out post-graduation into working full time. And then it was finally in the last few years that I kind of restarted with the channel. So it's always been this inherent joy for me to create. It's just, I'm sure you can relate, people that like to create, it's an appetite akin to eating food. You just start to get that itch and you have to do it.
Gotta scratch it, right?
You gotta scratch it. Yeah. So it's been with me for a long time, and no matter what happens in life, I keep circling back to it at some point.
Did you study any kind of video production in school?
Not really. I did minor in film, but I didn't really take many tangible production courses. I took one production class in college, and it was more a package you'd create for a newscast. So it was very much so unscripted and predicated on interviews. And so it didn't exactly appeal to what my wheelhouse was or what I felt most comfortable with doing. But a lot of that I took away from that, I do apply to the videos now. So that course really did strike me with how much I enjoyed engaging with it. And I remember a lot of my classmates found that class to be a pain and really annoying and very work intensive. And I remember thinking, I quite like this. I don't know what the complaints are about. So I feel like at that point in that course, I realized that editing, something I'd never really done before, was engaging for me, which was an interesting realization.
Yeah, when you do it the long hours and then you come out the other end and you're like, I want to do that again. You're like, maybe this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So question 2, what was your first game and system, and what made you fall in love with gaming? I would assume the first one is always pretty impactful, but if it was something else, then...
Yeah. You know, it's funny for me, it frustrates me because when I think back to the early days of gaming for me, I do not know what my first game was, and it frustrates me because I wish I had that linear timeline. I know I played some PC stuff when I was a kid. I used to play like point and click adventure games and weird little licensed games. There was a friend's house that I used to go over to that they had a Super Nintendo, and I used to play Super Mario World on there. But I remember my 2 first sort of seminal systems was the Game Boy Color for handheld, and then from a console perspective, it was the Nintendo 64. I'm not certain which one I got first, but they were close together, and my parents got me the N64 at a garage sale, and I remember they told me that they debated at the time, do we want to bring a game system into the house? Do we want our kids to play video games? They weren't sure, and they obviously opted to permiss it. And so they got a few games with those, and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was one of the games that came with the system. So that was an incredibly impactful game for me. And then on the other side with the Game Boy Color, I got that I think for Christmas one year when maybe I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I got Donkey Kong Country ported from the Super Nintendo as my first game on that. So those 2 systems were very impactful for me. I never had a Super Nintendo or anything that predated the N64. So those are huge for me. And then when it comes to falling in love with games, I mean, obviously my relationships with those games and playing them and getting a feel for the literacy of the medium was hugely impactful for me. But the memory that is most isolated for me with regard to the love of the medium was I was sitting in a restaurant with my parents when I was maybe 4 or 5 or something around there. And we were waiting for our food or waiting to order. And as a kid often is, I remember being incredibly bored, incredibly impatient. And I looked over at this other booth, and there were parents and another young boy, probably my same age. And he had a Game Boy Color. I think it was yellow. I just have that flash bulb image in my head. And I remember thinking, man, this kid is in a completely different world right now. I don't know what game he's playing. I couldn't see his screen, but he was so immersed in that game. And I just thought, man, if I had that with me right now, I would be somewhere else. And that childlike wonder of that moment has been manifesting in games for me ever since. Like, it almost seems too good to be true, or that you couldn't maintain that type of novelty all these years. But that spark that had me taken in that first instance in seeing him playing that game, that has maintained all this time. So I feel like in a way that was the start of my love of gaming, was seeing the potential in that.
Seeing someone else be really into it, and then you're like, I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
So on to the third question. How did you and Ellie meet?
We actually met through my cousin, one of my cousins. They are really close friends, and so it's funny, I had seen, she's a fair bit younger than I am. Ellie's a few years younger than me, and my cousin even a little bit younger than that. So I'd seen Ellie on her like Instagram, for example, over the years, but never had met her. And a few years ago, finally, we were introduced through her, and we started to talk and message, and then the snowball just started rolling from there. But it was cool to meet in that way. I feel like in this modern era, a lot of meetings between people come from dating apps with regard to romantic relationships, myself included. So to have a relationship that started in a more natural, organic way where we weren't necessarily looking to date one another when we first met was very refreshing. So I owe my cousin for that one.
Major props to your cousin. So that kind of leads me on to when you came up with the idea for this series, the My Girlfriend Tries, or I've noticed that it used to be My Girlfriend versus X game. What gave you the idea to do that as a series? And when you pitched it to Ellie, what did she think of it at first?
Yeah. So I'd seen a video years prior on YouTube, and it was essentially what gaming is like for a non-gamer. And it had millions of views.
Was it Rasputin, do you know?
Yes. Yes, it was Rasputin. Great channel. And I remember being so taken with that video. I was so fascinated by it. It was so interesting to see a non-gamer try to play games. And when I watched that, I didn't think, oh, I need to have somebody do this too. I need to replicate this. It did not cross my mind. At the time, I wasn't even making YouTube videos. So it was just one that I appreciated. And then when I started the channel, it was obviously entirely predicated upon me and my own thoughts and everything. And when I started the channel, Ellie and I had met, but we were not dating at the time. So it wasn't even a concept or an option. But then once we started to date, we started to play games together, and I would have her try this game that I love or that game that I love. And it was so much fun to watch her interact with them. It's obviously always fun to show somebody a movie that you love, or that you love, or an album that you love. So to show her a game that I love and to get to watch her play it was extremely entertaining. I loved doing that. But then again, it did not cross my mind to make anything out of it. She was doing this while I was already making other videos, and they were just sort of two separate entities. And to be honest, I don't know what happened on that particular day where the light bulb went off, but for some reason, I just thought, I loved that Rasputin video. Why don't I try to make some sort of, why don't I try to take a stab at it and sort of make it my own, change the format a little bit? That video was predicated upon a bunch of different games. Why don't I just do one game and give her 5 hours and we can see how far she got? And I ultimately picked Dark Souls for that first video. And so it was just that. It was very spur of the moment. I didn't have huge expectations for it. In fact, I remember we started to do it and I started to write the script. I was on a bachelor party and I remember writing the script in my notes on the bachelor party. So it was just this very, it was very fly by the seat of my pants. I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it beforehand. But when I asked Ellie, she was very gung-ho about it. She was very willing to help, which is funny because it's led to all these different videos. She could have just said no, and then that would have been that, and we would never would have explored where it could have gone. But I think that she was just enthusiastic about helping. In those first few videos, we didn't film ourselves. We didn't even record our own audio. So it was truly just play the game. I'll capture the footage, and then I'll write some analysis about what you're doing. So I think the lack of, or the privacy of it, the anonymity of it, I think made her more comfortable. I think if I presented all these bells and whistles that we do now at the outset, I don't know that she would have been willing to do it. And she also didn't have any idea how difficult of a game Dark Souls was. So if I could go back in time, I would pick a different game. I just wasn't thinking, I figured we'd do one of these and then that would be that. And maybe we would do it every 6 months or so, but in all likelihood, it would be a one and done. So I would have been a little more tactful in my planning had I known what would be to come. But she was very willing to assist, and I am eternally grateful for that.
That's awesome. It's good to have a partner that really wants to get, behind you on what you do,
It is.
So it kind of was a natural progression eventually to your guys' voices and then to the face cam, just kind of as you went along.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first, I think 3 videos don't feature any audio from her at all. And those first few videos did really well, but a very frequent piece of feedback was these would be a lot better if we could hear her. What is she thinking in that moment? I'm sort of telling you what happened. Why don't we just show what's taking place in the moment? And I often subscribe to the notion that if one person comments something on a YouTube video, there are a dozen or 20 or 30 people thinking it that didn't say anything. So the sheer number of people that were requesting that is like, we got to do it. And then of course we added the audio and people say, well, what does she look like? Like, what are her facial expressions? So then it was kind of this natural progression. Each time I was always so daunted to do it because I'm not technologically minded. I'm really not very gifted in that capacity. Ellie is a lot more adept than I am in that regard. So adding the mic, I was like, well, how am I going to sync this up with our audio? And then the camera, it's like, oh my, so each step has been a little bit intimidating, but ultimately I think it's made the videos better. I think people have been able to connect with us more directly through seeing us and hearing us. So I think the videos have improved over time with those additions, but it is funny to go back to those initial episodes that were just devoid of any of that. It's very interesting to see how it shifted over time.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to say which leads on to every time, but the next question is, did Ellie play games really before meeting you? Does she play games outside of the videos? I guess you kind of answered that already, but without you, does she play games really at all?
So she does. She has grown up around game systems. It's funny, her dad is very technologically minded. He loves different tech and things like that. And he also enjoys games. So he's played games throughout his life, not necessarily with the fervor of someone like myself, but definitely to a much higher degree than my dad, who's not a gamer at all. It's an interesting juxtaposition. So she was exposed to that through her parent. So she's played a number of games when she was younger. And then into adulthood, she had played The Last of Us. She played both of those games on her own. She played those, I think, with her dad to some degree. She had played Red Dead Redemption 2 on her own, so she had some gaming experience. And so it was really a perfect circumstance because if Ellie didn't play anything, I think it would be harder to make these videos.
Right.
Like my mom, for example, she doesn't play video games at all, and video games make her really motion sick, so it's hard for her to look at them. I couldn't have my mom make these. There wouldn't be enough literacy to make them work. Ellie has enough experience that she can jump into a game, and she has her sea legs to some degree just by virtue of what she's already played. But she's not so experienced that she grasps it immediately. There are plenty of genres she's never tried, plenty of series she's never heard of. So it works very well in that regard. So she does have some experience. Since we've started to film this and everything, she's played less on her own time because she just doesn't really have time. Typically, if she's gaming, it's for a video. So she did have a gaming literacy, and obviously that continues to sharpen and expand now. But in terms of the time that she spends gaming on her own, that has been reduced.
Yeah, so that adds a unique twist to it because like with Rasputin, I believe that's gaming with a non-gamer, someone who doesn't play games like at all. So you have someone who's you know, and also, you know, when I watch some of your videos, sometimes it's very relatable because, you know, I feel like we all have our genres where, you know, you don't have a lot of experience. So to see someone like struggle with it, you're like, I feel vindicated, or, you know, I feel like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So many people have said that. So many people have said that. And you're right, with Rasputin's channel, his wife, I believe, who he's working with, is not a gamer at all. I don't think she really plays games at all. He hasn't released that many videos in that series, despite them doing so well and being so fantastic. It makes me wonder if perhaps she's just not inclined to take part in that many of them. I think it's exhausting for someone who doesn't play games at all. It's like if someone doesn't play a musical instrument and every week you're asking them to play hours of the instrument and try to learn a song. And it's like, well, I don't even have any literacy. This is exhausting. Ellie, she's able to, because she just organically enjoys games and because she, again, has time with it and she grew up with a controller in her hand from time to time. It's fun for her. It's not, sometimes it could be laborious depending upon the game, and she's been vocal in certain circumstances that this is not the game for her. But by and large, it's engaging enough, and the more that she plays, the more literacy she develops. So it's kind of a snowball effect of picking up more skills. And there are many moments when we're recording a video or after we're discussing, and she'll say, you know, that I think was significantly easier for me by virtue of this one that we made 6 months ago. You know, that gave me all this experience that now I can apply to this one. So it's very cool to see that progression over time.
Yeah, I noticed that with like the Zelda ones you mentioned, where like, you know, as you've gotten to like Twilight Princess and stuff, she's had more, like a better time with them, I guess, because she's more familiar with them.
Totally. And like, that's a great example, because with The Legend of Zelda, that was the first time that we really took a whole series, and she's played like 8 or 9 of those games, and we're filming one right now, Tears of the Kingdom. And it's like, at the beginning of that series, Ellie did not know who Zelda was. She thought that Link was Zelda, as many do. I mean, she had no awareness of the series. And then, yeah, like you said, by the time we're at Twilight Princess, she understands the dungeon structure. She understands getting a heart container at the end, small keys. She has all of this understanding of things. And then we get to see how she applies that to the next game that often reinvents it. And so Breath of the Wild, had we just started her with that, would be one thing, but to play Breath of the Wild after Twilight Princess and Ocarina and A Link to the Past is a very different video. And so I've loved doing that. We're doing that with the Mario games right now, and I intend to continue to throw different franchises at her instead of just a piecemeal game, to see what she thinks of the progression of a game series. I think that's so fascinating.
Oh, so what does the typical shooting schedule look like for one of these episodes? And how does that compare to the videos that Ellie is not in, like your top 10, for example?
I mean, it's a lot harder logistically when you pull someone else in, obviously. You know, when I'm making these myself, I can make them at whatever pace I want. If I want to work for 24 hours straight, I can. When you pull someone else in, then you're beholden to their schedule too. So it's more challenging, of course, because I don't want to ask too much of Ellie. I mean, I often feel guilty enough asking her to take 5 hours out of her week and play a video game with me. So it was very challenging throughout last year, because we really got into the groove of making them last year, but we did not live together. So she would commute over to my place, and we were only able to film in my place because we had all the stuff here, and she had roommates and I was alone. It didn't make sense to go back and forth. So she started to spend a lot of time at my place, and the balance there was sort of skewed. It was challenging to figure it out. We now live together. It has made it so much simpler.
Yeah.
We're still kind of getting our legs in terms of how we schedule it out. Ideally, we want to film on the weekends so that the weeknights are freer. I mean, Ellie's working during the week and I'm working more in the week too, so it's just easier to do it there. So we're trying to get it into consistent nights. We've yet to get to that point yet, but in terms of the filming itself, I think we've come to find that 2 hours at a time is the maximum that we can do. Ellie gets really fatigued after that amount of time, and frankly I do too, and I'm not even the one playing. I mean, that's a long time. So we try to film in at least 3 different sessions of time, which you can always see because we have different clothes on. And then there have been some instances where we filmed it all in 5 different 1-hour sittings, which has been really fun actually. It keeps things very dynamic and fresh when she has all this time to stop. But we found that that's really important, not just to avoid burnout, but also Ellie may start a game, play for an hour or two, and then she has another day or two to kind of let those mechanics sink in. And we'll find that when we come back to it, she's a lot more adept than she was because she's had that time to kind of process those things and let them sink in a little bit. So I think it's been a process of figuring out how the scheduling works and everything. But ultimately, I mean, at the end of the day, it works because Ellie is incredibly accommodating and willing to help and takes time out of her evenings to do it. So logistically, it's not that complex to figure out at the end of the day, only because I'm lucky enough to have this partner who's so willing to help and so flexible with it all.
Right. I can definitely relate because I shoot stuff with my friends, you know, so when you get them to come do stuff, it's like, you know, feel a little bad about it, but you're also like, thank you so much, you know?
Yeah, it's such a gift for someone to give you their time to do something like that. So it's hard not to feel a little guilty, and you do your best to accommodate whatever they need because they're, you know, giving you their time. So I'm sure we're both very grateful for that.
Yes. definitely. And so I didn't know that you streamed. Is that kind of the general process now? Like you take the stream after it's done and then you write the script around it and do the voiceover and all that stuff? Or am I misunderstanding?
So we've started to work streaming into the channel's regimen, which is something that I've wanted to do for a long time and I'm really excited about. But we're very deliberate with regard to the content of the videos, always pre-recorded, and we're never online when we're doing that. So that is just us, the camera, and the game. I think it changes things so much to stream because you're interacting with people in real time. So it's a very different flavor when we're streaming. So I'm excited to incorporate live streams into the channel more because I think it's so fun. But in terms of the videos themselves, those will always be offline.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, I thought when I tuned into the stream, I was like, oh, so do they just stream it and then he cuts it together? But no, and that makes a lot of sense, as you said, because it would have a different flavor to it if the chat was adding to it, you know?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I will say, I think in due time, it could be cool to actually repurpose the streams as well and cut those down and kind of create a more condensed summation of what happened in the stream. As it stands, I've yet to find the time for that. So maybe someday.
The next question we already kind of touched on with Rasputin, but were there any of the channels that with a similar concept? You were aware of Rasputin. Were there any others that you were aware of? And do you have any opinions on them?
I was not aware of any other channel that did this type of thing beforehand. I have seen some others since. No names are coming to mind, but I've just seen individual videos of someone having their partner play, which ultimately at the end of the day, I'm trying to create this in a format that's as unique as possible. But of course, it's impossible to do something completely original. You know, everyone's already done it before. So I've tried to kind of carve out the niche as time's gone on. But Rasputin, an amazing channel, definitely an inspiration, not just with regard to those gaming for a non-gamer videos, but just his essays. A lot of what has existed in the channel before these girlfriend videos are just essays of my own. So a channel like that was kind of a North Star to look to see sort of the quality that I'm looking for. And then there are other channels that don't do that necessarily. There's a channel called Nitro Rad, which is more just sort of personality driven looks at video games and things like that, and sort of an on-camera personality, something that I'm kind of interested in delving more into in due time. So that's a great channel. Game Maker's Toolkit is another channel that I really love a lot.
You're saying all the ones that I'm aware of. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Love that channel. I love the way in which he unpacks games and sort of cuts them open and looks and examines. I mean, that's stuff I love to do. So another huge inspiration for me. And then I think growing up, the Angry Video Game Nerd was such an inspiration in terms of just, again, sort of taking a game and examining it. I don't have the persona that he has. I don't, and we've seen a million people with these sort of the irate approach that he takes. But that was such an old series that I was young when watching them. You know, I was in middle school when I started to watch those videos. So it's very nostalgic in a way that I don't really think of like YouTube videos in terms of nostalgia, but those are nostalgic for me, you know? So I don't necessarily intend to emulate the style of those videos, but what I loved about those videos was that it felt like there was this set. We were in his basement, we were in this room, and he would explore the space in different ways. And they're very ambitious, certainly even more so these days, but I just love, it was such a cozy feeling to be in this room and incorporating these sort of scripted elements to that. I don't know that that's something I'll ever do on my channel, but it's an aspiration, I suppose. And there are pieces of that I'd like to continue to incorporate over time.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing with Angry Video Game Nerd was after a certain point, I realized like what I was drawn to about it was how ambitious it was for the time. So like kind of going back to it, I was kind of like, this hasn't really kept up with my sensibilities as I've gotten older. But that's what happens when you start watching something when you're like 12, you know?
True. Yes, the lens changes quite a bit over the years.
What's the hardest part of like making a video, of the process, do you find personally?
I think the hardest part is just starting each leg of the journey, you know, to start the script, to sit and look at this blank document and say, oh my God, where do I even begin? Very daunting. And then you get the script done and you voice the script and you have all the components and you need to edit it. And then sitting there and looking at a blank timeline. I think that's the hardest part for me, is just sitting there before anything's been put into the program and you're just thinking, wow, somehow I've got to pull this 40-minute video out of all of these disparate parts. It's very challenging. I think in terms of the actual pieces, the editing is the hardest. It's the most time intensive. It requires the most focus. I find myself really struggling with my attention when I'm editing. I'm often just clicking on this and that and distracting myself and trying to delay the inevitable. I really have to work at it for an hour or so to like get into the mindset and be able to really focus on it. And I think also ideation is hard. I think figuring out what the next video is before anything tangible has even been done. Just thinking about what game should we cover next? Through what lens should I look at this game? Figuring out what the right game is at the right time and view viewed in the right way is, I think, a killer of many YouTube channels. Figuring out, gaming or otherwise, figuring out what you're supposed to make is very hard, and figuring out the intersection of what you want to do and what people want to watch is even harder. So I think the production piece of it is very challenging, but I think I've made so many of them, I've just gotten used to it, and I've gotten faster, and it's not as intimidating anymore. So, and then that gives you the space to try to pull in more elements and make them more ambitious. But I find still sort of committing to the thing that you're going to do is very challenging, and being willing to say, okay, this is the idea, we're sticking with it. Once we go, we can't stop until it's over and it's published. And if it bombs, then you just have to move on and go to the next one. So I think, strangely, that's the most challenging part for me.
Yeah, I always find, I don't know about you, but I always find once you get to like 10% done, then it like really moves. But when you're like 10% in, then you're like, I'm never going to finish this, you know?
You're so right. It's that initial part, and you just I feel antsy, I feel stagnant, I feel inclined to procrastinate. For me, it's always just the intro of a video, which ends up usually for me being like 20 to 30 seconds, very short. But if I can just get that done, then I at least have this chunk to attach everything else to. When you have literally nothing on there, that it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so intimidating. But once I have at least sort of the cold open there, I feel a lot better.
Definitely. And just a silly one to add on to that. You always have these usually humorous lower thirds under Ellie's name when you're interviewing her. Do you ever find yourself running out of those, or those get hard to come up with or whatnot?
I kind of worry that they would. So far, I haven't had too many issues with it. I suspect maybe someday I may run into some issues there. But I try to always really ground it in the moment of whatever it is that she's doing in the game. So it helps that she plays so many different games. I found that when we were doing the Zelda videos, I was starting to have trouble because a lot of those are similar in nature. And so a lot of Zelda puns or jokes, I was running through them all, so I couldn't. But we generally are hopping around, like with this Red Dead Redemption video, for example, the most recent video. We're in the Wild West. We got cowboys. It was so distinct from everything else that we've done so far, so it was very easy to do. Sometimes I fear that I'm repeating one that I've already used, but I can't remember, and I can only assume that if I can't remember, that no one else is going to remember either, nor would they care. So I don't even remember why I did a lower third like that and had some sort of identifier for her. I guess just given the interview format, I thought that was kind of funny, and so I just thought, well, why don't I just do something weird? And then I just started to think, well, why don't I just do it every time? And a lot of people have said they really like those, so I'm glad. That was one of those little moments of, I can't explain why I decided to do it necessarily, but I'm glad that I did. So I'm sure one day I may run into a little writer's block there, but it's been pretty smooth so far.
Yeah, I don't remember where I got it from. It might have been like the Nostalgia Critic, but I always end my videos with like a joke end card. Because I just remember seeing some person do that once, and I was like, that's funny. I should do that instead of just like putting my handle on there or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So, and whatever you got to do to keep it fun, you know?
Whatever you got to do to keep it fun, and little things like that can become synonymous with what you do, you know? And in the moment, you don't know that that's going to be the case. But now, I would never not put those little lower thirds down there, you know? It's like a part of the identity. It's like a fingerprint of sorts, you know? So it's just, I think it's always fun to just try something, small of a detail as it may be, could be something that you become known for in due time.
Yeah, exactly. So aside from, I put the main series, but you know, those videos, what videos of yours are you the most proud of?
It's a good question. I mean, I think I'm really proud of my first couple of videos just by virtue of the fact that I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, like I said, I'd had a little bit of editing experience in Premiere in that college class, but I use Final Cut Pro now. So it was a new program when I first started. I invested all this money into this new computer and then into the program. And I remember sitting down for the first video, which was sort of a review of a game called The Evil Within. And I just, you know, speaking of looking at the timeline, like not only was it empty, but I didn't even know how to use the program. I didn't know what I was doing. And so that video took me like weeks to edit and get a feel for. And by no means do I think it's one of my best videos, but the fact that I did it, I was very proud of that. I came away from that video feeling, wow, I actually made one. And once I made one, I knew I could make two. And then once I did two, I knew I could do three.
Make 26,
Exactly. Yeah, you can make 1 million. So those first two videos, actually, I made those back in 2021, and I sat on them for like 2 years before I ever published them to the channel.
Oh, really?
So those feel like this very different chapter where I ended up just procrastinating. I wanted them to be perfect. I wanted to have some kind of like title card at the beginning or something like that. I never got that. So I let myself off the hook. Finally, obviously, I published them. So those hold a soft spot in my heart. And then I think I made a video essay called It's Okay to Play Video Games, or Hey, It's Okay to Play Video Games. And that video was just essentially kind of chronicling my journey with kind of accepting my love of the hobby, not feeling self-conscious for playing video games.
Right.
And it was, you know, only 6 or 7 minutes, but it was just kind of a chronicle of that journey for me personally. And that was the first video that I published that really went viral in a sense relative to how my videos were typically performing. It was such an an exciting experience for me. But also beyond that, it was so rewarding to see how many people commented on that video and expressed their own experiences with it, expressed appreciation that they were still kind of on that journey to not feel like a pariah for playing video games, and seeing that video helped affirm their feelings of love for the medium. So that one for me, again, not necessarily one of my best videos, whatever that may mean, but one that always will resonate, one that I always will remember in my library, and I think one that has probably impacted more people than a lot of the other ones have. So to get that, I like to try to at times incorporate more of sort of an emotional bent to a video. I think that can be really resonant for people. So that one really sticks out for me. And then I think the last example would be just a couple of video essays I've made about The Legend of Zelda. I made one about Ocarina of Time. I made one about Breath of the Wild. I made a lot of video essays. I always will love to do that. And those two videos are my top performing videos on my channel. And so I just particularly love Ocarina of Time. As I mentioned, it's one of my favorite games of all time. So to be able to create sort of a love letter to that game and sort of extol its virtues and just espouse my love and see that resonate with so many people, that's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, if you had told the child version of me that one day people are going to watch your thoughts on this by the hundreds of thousands, and they're going to share their love and share their experiences with it. I actually had someone comment on that video. They were like a 6th grade teacher, I think, and they had one of their classes, you know, after school program or something. They played all the way through Ocarina of Time, and the kids all watched it and loved it. And seeing stuff like that and being able to connect with people through a video that I made is really amazing. So I think that those are probably, amongst others that I could name, those are some of the standouts for me.
Cool. Did you have one that was like, it's okay to not play hard games or something like that? Or it's okay to play games on easy? Yeah.
I called, sorry, go ahead.
I just remember really resonating with that one because I don't play a lot of games like Dark Souls or whatever, just because when I fuck up a lot, you know, it frustrates me and I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I play a lot of those games, and even I have felt a lot of frustration and frustration fatigue lately. So I made that video. I called it, I'm tired of hard games, which I think helped to percolate it up in the algorithm. It did very well, but it also invited a lot of controversy and a lot of comments that were not fond of it. So that was
it's a divisive issue in the gaming community.
There aren't many more divisive issues, I think, at this point than the question of difficulty and accessibility. I did not realize I was going to strike such a nerve with that video, but I did.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? So then the next question I had, what are some of your favorite YouTube channels, gaming related, not? I mean, we've already given quite a few examples, but have any of them influenced your style? Any non-YouTube pieces of media that are a big influence to you?
Yeah, I mean, the channels that I named are really my standouts. I think I really love channels that feature some kind of personality-driven through line, have some sort of persona that you see on the screen, kind of establishes a consistency with which they view these games. So you know, okay, this is the angry video game nerd, so I know the lens through which I'm looking at this. And you become connected to not just the game. You're not just clicking on the video because you know that game. You may click on a video of a game that you're not familiar with, but because you know the person, you're going to engage with it. I really enjoy that type of stuff, and that's what I'm trying to build with my channel. And I think earlier on was not as much of a priority as it's becoming now, is finding a way to sort of endear people to my views and my takes beyond just the game itself. So I think that's a huge inspiration for me, a huge influence in kind of how I'm trying to make what I make. And then I think, I mean, I have so many loves in terms of film or television or music or things like that. I think they influence me. I mean, I've written some screenplays and done some fictional writing, and that stuff is deeply influenced by those pieces. But I think in terms of making these YouTube videos, it feels so separate that I think maybe some of that emotional appeal and trying to find a heart within topics that may not necessarily have that, I think that's probably influenced by that media, but it's such a vastly different type of experience that I think a lot of the fictional influence is left at the door. But it does, I think, help influence. I try to kind of create some kind of narrative structure for these, even though they're not, I mean, I guess they are scripted, but they're not fictionalized. I think a lot of the consumption of media as I've grown up has taught me that I think people like to engage with something that has a clear narrative structure, a through line, something that's easy to follow. And so I do think that I've applied, as I'm saying this, I realize I do apply that as much as I can to the videos.
Right. I noticed that movie poster back there, the man with a plan.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's actually the Red Dead Redemption poster.
Oh, it's a Red Dead Redemption poster.
Yep.
I thought it was some movie. It's very convincing.
It looks like it. Yeah, it looks, these are all game posters, but I feel like could pass as films. They're very stylized, but yeah, that's very appropriate actually.
By the way, quite the PlayStation collection you got.
Thank you. Yes, I wasn't sure exactly what would be in my camera view. I'm glad that my collection is caught there a little bit.
So I guess that kind of leads on to what types of games do you enjoy the most and how has this changed over time?
That's a great question. I mean, I think,
Have you always been a big
growing up,
PlayStation?
I actually wasn't. I was not a big PlayStation person growing up. I was really an ardent Nintendo supporter when I was a kid. And I think that was just obviously by virtue of the fact that those were the systems I got first. Nintendo obviously tends to be appealing to families and has a lot of age-appropriate series that anyone can enjoy. So that's what I gravitated to. So I was a big-time Nintendo fan. So loved really all of the main prominent Nintendo franchises growing up. And then as I got into like teenagehood, 13, 14 years old, I got to the point where sometimes my dad would let me buy a rated M game that, were typically off limits before then. So Resident Evil 4 was a very seminal release for me. That was one of the first M games I was allowed to buy. I got the Wii version of that game. And my dad was really on the fence. I remember we were in a GameStop and he was really torn. And he said, all right, you can get it. And I took that game home and I started to play it. And nothing was ever the same after that. Survival horror became my favorite genre. That remains arguably my favorite game of all time. And so that ushered in sort of the more adult-oriented, sea of games that exist as I got older. So into my late teens is when I picked up a PlayStation 4 and I sort of expanded over to the PlayStation side of things. So I'm pretty platform agnostic at this point. I just want to play everything that I can. I have no allegiance to any sort of company. Survival horror remains probably my favorite genre, but I love adventure games, action adventure games, open worlds, RPGs, platformers, you name it. I probably enjoy it to some degree, obviously to varying degrees, but I've always tried to be as open-minded as I can be because I think in my life I tend to really crave comfort, as many of us do, and consistency, and oftentimes we're averse to change. And video games is this realm where it's entirely safe to do something that's unusual. So to try a new game genre, you're going off on a limb, but the stakes are very low. I mean, worst case, you wasted a little money and a little time.
Right.
So I've tried, and as such a student of the medium, I'm always trying to try something different. And the channel has further encouraged that. It's further encouraged me to take a risk on something that I might not like. There was a game that released last year called Blueprints, and I would not have played that game if I didn't have the channel, but it was new and it reviewed really well. And I thought, well, okay, I wasn't even going to get this game. Let me just buy it and I'll make a video about it while it's pertinent and while it's relevant at the moment. And it ended up being my second favorite game of the year. I love it. And now it's opened my mind up to some types of games maybe that I wouldn't have been otherwise. So certainly there are genres that I don't care for. I'm not much of a strategy guy. I find it very daunting. I'm not like a racing sim guy. I don't particularly enjoy sports games very much, but I'm always open to it. And there's always going to be the game that transcends. There will always be the game that says, okay, maybe you don't like this genre, but you'll like this game. So I'm always keeping my eyes peeled for those games that are sort of ascendant in that sense. And just really, I try to expand it as much as I can because there's always, that next great game that you don't know that you'll love until you play it. So I continue to try to seek those out.
It's really funny because I found that, like, for example, like I don't play a ton of RPGs, but put Mario in it, you got me. Or like, I don't really play tactics games. Mario and Rabbids, that game's great. It's like they got my number. So
Nintendo does a great job with that. They do such a great job with taking, I mean, like some of my earlier RPGs were the Mario and Luigi games, like Bowser's Inside Story. That was one of the first ones that I played. And it was so approachable. It was so immediate. The battle system has sort of the real-time element, timing-based element, something that we've seen in Expedition 33 last year. I mean, I know those devs have at least played some Mario and Luigi in their past because you can see that through line. And so, yeah, a lot of Nintendo games, like real-time strategy, for example, I just said, I'm not that into it. I love Pikmin. I'm a huge Pikmin fan. So I think Nintendo does such a fantastic job of taking a genre that maybe isn't that, like I'm not that big of a multiplayer guy, online multiplayer at this point in my life. Splatoon, great time, love Splatoon. So it's very interesting how adept they are. Fire Emblem, for example, I really enjoyed Fire Emblem Awakening. I would never play a turn-based strategy game generally. So they are really adept at finding how to ease you into a genre that maybe you wouldn't think you'd like.
Yeah, see, I knew you like Pikmin and you like Mario and Luigi. I knew you were a good guy. No,
that's the barometer for quality of human being is, do they like those two? And if they do, I like
it. Have you played the Paper Marios, by the way?
I have played Super Paper Mario. I played Paper Mario Sticker Star to completion.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I know that's not particularly a beloved entry in the series. I played The Thousand Year Door when I was a kid, actually, like when it came out. I was so young that I just couldn't play it. I mean, I think I was like 6 or 7 when that game came out, so wasn't quite there yet. But I'd like to go back and play it. I know obviously it released on Switch, the remaster, so I'd love at some point. I kind of missed the Switch generation, so I have this big gap in my Nintendo awareness. So I'm trying to go back and cull through some of the best stuff. So at some point, I'd really love to play Thousand Year Door to completion.
Yeah, and the first one is my favorite game of all time. It's on the Switch online, so I cannot recommend it enough.
Okay, duly noted. Yeah, I don't even think I've ever touched the original on 64, so that's good to hear. I'd
It's
love to try it.
one of the last N64 games released in North America, actually. So there's a fun
Oh,
fact
is it
for
really?
you. Yeah, the
That's
last one was, well, the last first party one was Mario Party 3. The last one in general was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, I think, or something like that. Some random game that came out in like 2003, you know, when you're like, who's releasing an N64 game in 2003?
Wow, that is really crazy to think about.
And so what are some of the favorite games you're playing right now?
I have been deeply enmeshed in Tears of the Kingdom lately. It has just completely taken over my life. I played Breath of the Wild last year, and it's well documented on the channel that I was skeptical of it. I wasn't sure to what degree I was even going to like it. I was very averse to changing the Zelda structure, and so I just went into that game with an open mind, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So going into Tears of the Kingdom, I felt confidently that I was at least going to like the game. I was a little worried about some of the mechanical introductions, so I felt like, worst case, I like Breath a lot more. I'll still like this, but let me tell you, I am obsessed with this game. I think I put in over 40 hours to the game at this point, which is about how much I put into Breath all told and finished it. I'm not even close to being done with Tears of the Kingdom. I don't even feel like I'm approaching the end. So I've got at least 20 more hours, I would suspect, out of this game. I can't really remember the last time that I played a game that was so effortless for this long. You know, like you kind of hit that point of fatigue generally like 40 hours into a game. That's a lot of time into one game. You kind of start to feel, okay, you know, you're going through the motions. I'm tired of this mechanic. I'm tired of this element. That has not hit me at all. So I am so, it's like I can't even see any other game right now, you know? It's commanding so much of my time, going to bed too late. So much to play. I'm so excited for so many games, but right now it's all tears.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that I'm glad a lot of games are still coming out on Switch 1 because I don't know, the Switch 2 just hasn't tickled me. It might be my Wii U, you know, it might be the one that I just skip, you know?
Yeah. That's fair.
It's expensive and it feels like a lot of the magic is kind of gone, you know, the inventiveness of past. But I guess people want the games because it's selling really well. So
it is,
what do I know?
Well, you know, it is really interesting. I think, I mean, that point is resonant. I think it feels like the safest Nintendo system maybe that they've ever made. I mean, it's the first time really that they've made a 2. Generally, they don't make a numbered sequel console. It's very foreign. And it makes me wonder now, is this Nintendo? Is it the Switch 3 and Switch 4? So
I feel like it might be.
Very curious to see. I think it may be too. Yeah. So I don't blame you. I think for me, having missed the Switch, I felt like, wow, it's been so long. And it also, again, going back to the YouTube channel, that was very influential for me to get the Switch too. I thought, you know, why don't I cover Nintendo games? That seems like such a blind spot. And it's Nintendo is so important to me. And for years now, like when I streamed in college on Twitch, I didn't do Nintendo at all. It was all PlayStation because I would just stream natively from that system and the Switch couldn't do that. And I didn't know how to set it up on a PC. So I just had missed Nintendo so much. So for me, it feels like I'm getting the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. There's just so much to play now. So, but if you're someone who's been there for the Switch and seen that through, I mean, I wouldn't blame you at all for waiting years to get the Switch 2 because there are so few exclusive games at this point and it is expensive. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And, you know, part of the thing about the Switch 2 was like it was an underdog, you know, succeeding finally. And now it's like they're not an underdog. They're super rich and, you know, so it's kind of like, all right. By the way, you guys should totally play Chibi Robo because I think that's on the Switch too.
Yes. I have actually played a lot of the original. I have it on the GameCube.
Yeah.
And I started it up on the Switch Online the other night and just played like 10 minutes of it. It's such a charming game. I would love to do that at some point.
And lastly, any advice you have for up and coming video creators?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's one that I feel like I could just go on forever with. I feel like there are so many pieces of wisdom that I've picked up in doing this, so I'll try to just run through maybe a few of the standouts for me. I mean, I think the seminal biggest piece of advice I would say for anyone aspiring to try to do something like this is you have got to find the thing about which you are unbelievably passionate, or you're not going to make it. You have to be absolutely, completely in love with what you're talking about. I mean, I can't overemphasize that enough. I can't overemphasize how much I love video games. I mean, I'm sure that's communicated a little bit here in this conversation, certainly through the channel. I love them so much. If everyone on this planet could find what they love to do as much as I love to play video games, the world would be a better place. I think about them all the time. I'm playing them every night. I can't explain how much I love them. And I belabor this point so much because that is how much you need to love what you're going to talk about. If you're ever going to do this, to create, just to use YouTube as the platform, to create a YouTube channel, and let's just say your ambition is to do it full time. It's an exhausting process. If you just want to do it on the side and have fun and make stuff for you, totally different thing. And you can do whatever you want, and I celebrate that. But viewing this through sort of the lens of someone who would want to take it a little bit more seriously, if you don't love what you are talking about, or at the very least just love the process of making videos itself, getting a little meta, you just love that piece of it enough, you're going to burn out. And I think that kind of leads into the next point. It's an inevitability that you're going to go up and you're going to go down through this process. And I think a big piece of advice I would say is firstly to expect that. It is going to happen. I used to think before I started, yeah, okay, that's not going to happen to me. I'm a talented guy. I'm going to start publishing videos and it's just going to take off, and you will be humbled very quickly. And I know that there are edge cases of crazy success stories, of course, but often those people already have professional production experience, or they already made a different channel back in the day, or they worked for a larger channel and could take that information and apply it to their own personal endeavors. To just start this and to have it take off is very unlikely. And even when you do get a hit, for example, that video, It's Okay to Play Video Games, that went very viral for me. In a few weeks, it got like 50,000 views. And I remember thinking, well, I guess the next video is going to get 50,000 views too.
Nope.
No, yeah. To this day, it has like 500 or 600 views. So growth in this form, it's like the stock market. It is up and then it's down and then it's up and then it's down. And it's exhausting. I think the hardest thing for me about the journey of doing this is being able to stomach working for a week on a video, publishing it, and it performs well below what I was expecting. That is a gut punch that I can't even describe. And when you're trying to do it for a living, it intensifies that gut punch. It's like 10 gut punches, you know? So you have to be prepared for that. You have to be ready to roll with it. And what will get you through that is the passion. The reason that I'm able to roll through it is because I'm already thinking about the next video, and I'm already thinking about the next game that I want to talk about. And I started playing this new game and I love it, and I've got to make a video about that. That hunger is what pushes me forward. So I think those two pieces are essential for your durability as a creator. And I think ultimately you just have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to change. Again, there's going to be this intersection between what you want to make and what people want to watch. And finding where that is can be challenging because it may not be where you think it was going to be. What you think, what you know you want to do that you think people will like, maybe not, maybe not. I started out by just making some reviews of old games. They weren't particularly noteworthy games. They were just some games that I liked. Turns out people didn't really want to watch videos about that in most cases. You know, those are my least viewed videos to this day. People didn't really care. So, okay, well, how can I adjust that? Maybe I can change the framing of the video. Maybe I can make it not about this game, but about how the mechanic of movement applies to a few different games. And then more people would be interested in that. Okay, well, people like to hear me talk somewhat, but what if I incorporated my partner into the videos and then see what people think about that? Oh, they love that. Okay, I need to do more of that. You're just gonna have to constantly make these pivots as you continue to grow, because that intersection is never gonna be quite where you think it is, but over time, you can move these two variables and you will find it. So now my audience generally loves to watch these girlfriend videos or my takes on games, a very specific kind of format and persona. I love to make them. That's the beauty for me right now, is that I'm not doing it to make ends meet and because it's sucking my soul out of my body. I love to make them. In fact, I find them perhaps more fun than any other kind of video that I've made. So it's taken years and a lot of time and energy and practice, but I have found something that I love to do and that people love to watch. And then from there, you can find the next thing. And it just, the hardest part is the beginning. The hardest part is starting. But if you can push through, if you love what you do, if you're patient, if you have a lot of diligence, I do believe that failure is almost impossible. The reason that people don't make it is because they give up too early. And I would impart that as strongly as I can. You're not doing it because it's too hard. It's because people stop. And a lot of the time, I'll say this, the worst night that I've ever had in this whole YouTube journey, and it was a bad night. I posted this video. I thought it was going to do great. It did not. I was so upset. I woke up the next day and I still felt terribly. That night precipitated an upward trend of the channel that I'd never seen, and the momentum has largely carried to this very day. And I was the closest I've ever come to giving up on it. And I mean, I'm not making that up. It was right before, it was the first Zelda video. I was so close to saying, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go apply and find a different job. It's not going to work. And lo and behold, everything started to take off after that. So I can't impart enough the importance of patience, passion, and persistence to be alliterative.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said.
Thank you.
So you actually don't do this full time? I thought you did.
I do. I do do it full time. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I didn't used to. So I started it out in very much a part-time fun capacity, and I did that for about a year and a half. And funnily enough, after the first 2 girlfriend videos were released, that's when I was laid off and I lost my job. And over that, it was December of 2024. So over that month and over that sort of Christmas period, I was about to apply for jobs, like a knee-jerk reaction. I was just going to start. And then we had a video do really well. And I thought, man, what if I just tried this? What if I tried it? For years, I thought about taking some time and just trying a creative endeavor. You know, I've been working this 9-to-5 for years. I'd saved up some money and I thought, what if I just tried it? And so it was just this happy accident almost that the channel was doing well enough that I just said, this is crazy, but I'm going to give myself 2025 to pursue it full time. And that was very up and down. It was very costly, but I've gotten to a point of better sustainability now. So I do it full time, and my intention and my goal is to continue that for as long as I can.
Wonderful. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Anything else you'd like to add at the end here, Wilson?
Thank you. Thank you you for speaking with me, Sapphire. I have to say, when people ask me about the YouTube channel or video games, I often find myself speaking as succinctly as I can because I'm always afraid that they're getting bored and they don't want to hear about it. So to be given the opportunity to talk about it in a long form fashion is a gift to me. So thank you for indulging me in conversation. I appreciate it very much.
It was a pleasure. It is great to hear you talk. So like, comment, share, favorite, subscribe, all that kind of shit. And until we meet again, so long, farewell. I'll be Sinadu. Peace out.
You're watching PXKM Productions. PXKM Productions. Subscribe to me right now. Follow me right fucking now. Right now. Donate to my Patreon. Donate to my only